There you go. We're
Yeah.
live, Janice. Finally.
Woohoo! Hello, everybody. We are back for our first live CreateAWorld in quite some time. And Tantra is with us, and we are thrilled. Um, I Tantra um, published a Substack of hers, and she shared somebody else's Substack within the last week or so. And both of those pieces felt critical, foundational to me for what we really mean when we say create a world. Um, and the first one was the post that she wrote about, why she stays present to current circumstances. And the second one was a post that she shared that was actually somebody talking about w- basically all of the ways that our current systems, like in the United States, would fall apart if um, we actually made contact with aliens in a way that everybody on the street knew that this thing had happened. Um, and and basically the fact that like our biology wouldn't be prepared for it, our psychology wouldn't be prepared for it, et cetera, et cetera. Um, which just all pulled me into thinking about what it is to create a world and who we have to be in the activity of creating a world. And this idea of being present and this phrase, right, that I grew up within the Christian church, but I actually understand it now. This phrase of being in the world and not of it. Um, and all of those are critical to actually creating a world. So I asked Tantra if she would riff on this idea of presence and how it works. So go, Tantra.
Well, I actually want to start with something really simple. Way, 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 way back when there was AIDS and the Vietnam War and the end of segregation, uh, a lot of women were housewives. We really didn't back then, which would be almost 80 years ago. Back then, there wasn't a huge population of women that were self-supporting. And what I did was I actually took housewives because they wanted to go into the job market, but it was literally they were panic-stricken. And so I did some really crazy things. I took them to wrestling matches, and I took them to environments where they had no relationship and had no experience of being in those environments. They were just out of their league, just out of their awareness. Because it wasn't about shifting from being a mother and a housewife to work. It was this thing that was talked about in that, what's it called, Janice? When you're outside your reality, when it's just too much. It's that article, the second article.
Oh, catastrophic disclosure.
Well, it was similar to catastrophic disclosure, that it just was out of their league. It was out of what they'd ever thought the world could be. And it took about 6 months. We made it like a game, but it took about 6 months before they had a confidence to even get a job. So the reason I wanted to start with that is because this isn't just about when things are highly traumatic, like things that really go against our moral code. And it's also about if there's a sudden shift from what we've experienced as reality, if there's a sudden shift to how could this possibly be, which is what we're in now, which is what we're in now. And so that's as far as I want to go, and I'm going to turn it back over to you, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, and that's, so I was uh, free. And so the drivers of competition and I that some people and some would be.
Janice, you're garbled. You're frozen. You're almost frozen.
And now you're what about now, Tantra?
Yeah, now you're fine.
Okay.
You'll
So
need to
anyway,
start again.
yeah. So when I was thinking about the implications of this for Create a World, and I was thinking about like for me, I would create a world where everyone had food and shelter and their basic needs met so that they could be in the activity of creating in the way that they love to create. And I mean that for I think we have to expand our understanding of creating like outside of art, right? I mean like somebody who builds a house is creating, somebody who fixes plumbing is creating. I mean that so anyway, but then I realized that this world that I could see, this world where competition wasn't needed and othering wasn't needed because there wasn't anything to have to stay safe from, like where other people were concerned. Like there are people who couldn't even fathom that that reality could exist. I can fathom that that reality would exist, but some people can't even fathom that that reality could exist. When I was working in the public school system, the sort of the last job that I had, um, it was my job to I would say facilitate teams of people who were coming together from the district, from schools to help teachers teach in a particular way to help be more supportive of kids. And when I first broached this topic of having teachers on this team, I was told all the reasons that was not possible. Nope, all the scheduling reasons, all the all the reasons it wasn't possible. To which I said, "BS, we're going to make it happen," and we did make it happen. But that required me to be able to see current reality, but also hold on to my vision for what reality could be. And that, to me, that's being able to stand with a foot in both worlds. And that's really what I wanna yeah, that's really what these 2 pieces that I got from Tantra made me think about. So Tantra, back to you.
The two things I want to say is, I started a global community in 2014. You're part of that community, but it was for this time. I'd had a premonition. I'd had a vision. I'd even had a visitation, but we won't go that far. And it was 25 and 26 how bad it was going to be before it resolved itself. So this is really a key element to what came to me or what was shown me wasn't anything I expected. Because I think the normal expectation I would have had, because now I'm way past it, would have been to help people cope. But that wasn't what showed up. What showed up is that humanity had been so attached to outer circumstances for so long, they'd lost touch with themselves, that they no longer knew what they wanted to create. And even people that I'm in engagements with, even now, even when everything's collapsing, they're trying to find it out there. And I could see the arc because I'm psychic. I could see the arc into 2025 to 2026. And in that arc, there would be this challenge because as the outer world stopped taking care of them, stopped taking care of people, the inner world would be deficit. Who not only who am I? See, it's kind of a catch-22 right now because humanity's being forced into who am I? Because if we can't figure out who we are in the matter, we're literally in complete trauma response, hoping something will save us, or hoping that somehow everything will turn out and we'll, have food on our table again. We won't see our neighbors dragged off to prisons. Um, so it's a weird paradoxical moment, and I'm very offended when I listen to kind of a new age phenomenon of language about this was meant to be so humanity could awaken. Bullshit. This was never, pardon that may get me edited, that this was never what humanity was meant to be. Humanity is traumatized because it isn't what we're meant to be. It isn't a learning curve. It is a what the F. That's what it is. So we have a complex phenomenon of people who are frozen in place because all of a sudden they're what took care of them, whether it's family, because we have families in dispute politically, whether it's our community, the horror of what's happening in so many communities, whether it's governance, and then what's happening worldwide. So we've got it at every single level. So there's this conversation that you asked me to have feels critical because if we don't realize, oh my goodness, there's only one through line here, get in touch with myself. And one of the ways we get in touch with ourselves, you called it presence earlier, but I'll leave that over to you. One of the ways we get in touch with ourselves is see who we be in the face of what's occurring, like a discovery process, not like a coping skill. Does that kind of round out what you asked of me?
Yes. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. And yeah, I just want to, if I can, I'm going to read your own words back to you. But for the benefit of the folks on the call, um, I, I want to share some specific things from Tantra's post, and I will I I shared it on CreateAWorld once, but I will also do it again. Oh boy, and now it's disappeared on me. Hang on, folks.
I just
This is the
wrote they're
benefit.
welcome. I
Yes,
just
go
wrote they're
ahead.
welcome to ask questions. So
Yes. Um, so this is part of the things that really pinged me. So Tantra wrote, stay present even when it's uncomfortable, especially then, because something in you knows that your presence matters, your opinion, your outrage, all what it is to be present, but don't stop there. Be aware of your presence. Your presence is the part of you that knows you are one with what is unfolding and one with what is becoming. And then she goes on to say, what if you could stand within what you hold to be real about life, regardless of circumstances? What if you could comment on the story of the world, not only as reaction to it, but as one who is participating in everything moving into the next greater whole? Not managing reality against it, but managing what is yours to manage within awareness. Awareness and action are not opposites, they are partners. We can act, respond, intervene, care, speak, build, dismantle, all while holding awareness as the ground we stand on. And to me, that awareness is awareness of who we be, and what we hold dear in our hearts, right? Like, I mean, does it make sense that we would have things that we care so deeply about and passionately about if it was just meant to be random and pointless? No. We feel these things because it's who we're meant to be and how we're meant to shape reality here. But that's not the language that we were raised with. We weren't raised to believe that we have that kind of power and that kind of influence. Right? We were raised to think, oh well, in order for me to have that kind of influence, I have to have money, or I have to have a certain job title, or I have to blah blah blah, right? I have to do all the things in the temporal reality. And what we are offering in Create a World is no, right? You can create right from where you're standing in the moment, just by tuning into what you're present to. Tantra.
I think I think this is the perfect moment in time to have this conversation. That's the first thing I want to say. And why is because it moved. I think the dial has moved from this can't possibly be to this is so. This really is what's happening. And we we underappreciate our natural systems. We underappreciate them. And our natural systems, I did a lot of transformational work when I was young, and Werner used to say, just the facts, man. What are the facts? What are the facts? Because you go through this emotional uh, swing until you go, oh yeah, people really are being harmed. And you mentioned this either in the writing or what you just said, but sometimes we think when we just get down to the facts that we then don't care anymore. But no, that moment of this is real, this is what's happening, actually means because we're finally standing there. We're finally standing there in direct relationship with what is happening. And when we're standing there in direct relationship with what is happening, we get to get our opinion. We get to see if we want this to be real, literally want this to be real. And I don't know, it's funny, Lizzie, that you would ask that question while I'm somewhat answering that question. That's why I love humanity. Um, so it's all, so I'm going to move over to Leslie to answer a question. So first of all, we are what we are when we're being it. We can't not be it. We have a WhatsApp international thread, and we can watch that thread all day, and somebody will be weeping uncontrollably and doesn't know why they're weeping. Somebody else can be elated because the little red fox is back at their back door. So we base our well-being on our emotional field. That is really not a good place to base our well-being on right now. We are in a living experience of what goes against a large majority of human beings knowing about what life is really supposed to be about. So there's another quote that I heard in all the work I've done. The other one is honor is in the speed of recovery. So it's how fast, what you need to do to get back to yourself. Like there's a young man I watch, Parnas, and there are days I won't watch. I just won't watch because I can tell my ability to take in the information is is weak, and my ability to return to the beauty of my house, feeding the birds, figuring out I have a bum knee, figuring out how I get to the hairdresser. And this is the most ancient art we have. I mean, if you go to the Tibetan monks, their whole days are about cooking, cleaning, and meditating. So it's the ability to manage our ability to be present. But I don't think, Leslie, we can stay in a flowing, connected presence all the time. And it's for a very simple reason. We haven't ever been here before. I'm 80. I would have been one of the ones that I was post Second World War. I've never been here before. The worst I've ever been is segregation, AIDS, and the Vietnam War. It wasn't like this, where the whole structures were completely connecting. And the other question I'm going to answer, but I actually I'm going to prefer Janice's answer because you also, Leslie, you have to figure out who you are. I'm an MF. I'm a dragon. Don't F with my children. don't mess with me. And actually, unfortunately, Janice is too, so I'm not sure we can I'm not sure the one that we should be the ones actually commenting, but you get to see kinda who are you, if you're fierce, and Janice and I've worked together, God, 30 years maybe, uh, and one of the hardest things if you don't mind me saying this, one of the things she had to figure out is she was fierce in a world that didn't approve of her being fierce. But look who's sitting here now. Look who has a voice. Look what her work is, which she should probably share, because that whoever we are has to find our place in the scheme of things. Some of you are lovers. Some of you just want to cuddle the harmed. Some of you want to cook all day, because every single thing we do that connects us to our unique and essential pattern of being is our presence. Over to you, Janice.
Yeah, and so, Leslie, I think that I'll just share this through my own story and my own struggle. So, I was raised in a Christian church, early 20s. I was having a lot of issues with the dogma, and I was like, I gotta go. Peace out, people. And then I was in and then I was in the spiritual wilderness. And then my mom gave me a book about feng shui for my birthday, which I'd never heard about, which then sort of took me into the Eastern religions and then sort of the New Age religion. And as I and as I entered those spaces, the New Age space in particular, um, I started to experience this. I mean, I'm not sure anybody would say it's actual dogma, but I experience it as dogma, which is this idea that that you're supposed to be happy all the time. That that when you're in right relationship with yourself, with God, with whatever you want, that you're happy all the time, that you're at peace, right? And then there's, kumbaya all the time, right? Uh-uh. That's not we're here having a human experience. And the human experience spectrum is from horror to euphoria.
Bliss.
Right, to
Yeah,
bliss.
bliss.
I mean, that's but but it
Hold on, pause right there. What if we took it on? What if we took on being able to be the full range? What if we took on our capacity, because it's all about strength, stamina, capacity. We took our capacity to be in the face of horror when horror was up. And then we 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 then looked for bliss. We literally looked for bliss. Because this is such a key thing. Sorry to interrupt you, but this is such a key thing because everything keeps trying to enroll us in the horror. Everything. And it's our job to enroll ourselves in the spectrum and to find our bliss. And the first thing Janice said is key because in so much of the new age, find your bliss and totally be separate from the world. Well, I want you to know that caused as much damage as the people that were messing with the world. Because people said, this is not my business. Well, this is the food you eat. This is who governs you. This is who takes care of your physical body. So it's kind of a stupid statement. So in the world and not of it means in the world, not of it, but interacting with it. And that is a new learning because of the extreme state of affairs we're in now. The only difference between the collective that a lot of us have been a part of since 2014 is they had a psychic that predicted this future. And so we just started going to work about what is it to be my unique and essential self? What is it to be in the face of my own presence? What is it to find bliss in the garbage dump? Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. There's a tenet of improv that's called yes and. So when people are improvising a scene and somebody says, "Oh, I just got my donkey back from the shop." The second person doesn't say, "Oh, you don't have a donkey." They go, "Oh, yes, your donkey, and did they also fix your llama or whatever?" It's the idea that you take it all in, that everything has a place, which is one of the key tenets of the work in the field of Tantra Maat. And that what is it to find bliss in the garbage dump? Yeah, and so Leslie,
I don't know.
that
I like beans. So if I found a can of beans that was unopened in the garbage dump, I think I'd be pretty happy. Not to make light.
right, but and yet making light is part of it, and not making light, but recognizing that emotions are designed to move through us. They're not designed to set up camp. So, when I read the latest on what's happening in Gaza, I experience deep despair and horror. I mean, because I care about humanity. So of course I would. But also, so this is December. I am a Christmas maniac. That if I could easily swing my computer, I would. I'll try to post a picture on CreateAWorld later. But so that way is all my John Perry sculptures, and they're sculptures of they're whales and seals and otters, and this month they're all sporting Santa hats because that's part of what puts a smile on my face, no matter what else is going on. And that may seem like a small thing, but it's a deliberate choice. So, like the last couple of weeks, I've given myself permission to say, you know what, I'm dialing way back on the political stuff because normally that's all over my feed, politics, politics. I'm dialing way back, and I'm going to be with the magic of Christmas because that's part of what just brings me joy. And joy is resistance, right? I mean, we're seeing people say this all over the place. Choosing to be in your joy when people are trying to control the outcome of humanity, that is an act of resistance because you
Like
are
the Yeah,
declaring yourself
like the
freedom.
characters in Portland that dressed up as bunnies and did danced and did things like that. It, it's it, it isn't a coping skill. It's a remembrance of what life actually is.
Right. And 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 that lives in each of us, right? I mean, if you've ever seen footage of children in a war zone and somebody's playing with them and making them laugh, right? Because that laughter is an inherent part of the human condition. It's there. It can be tapped into. Not that we ignore the horror that these children are in, but that we recognize that these things coexist. Horror and bliss coexist and within the human condition. And so part of the challenge is for us to eat, like Tantra said, we have to get to know ourselves because we have to recognize that most of us were raised in cultures that did not encourage that. You were raised, if you went to church, you were raised with all kinds of rules associated with that. Not that it was always a bad experience, I'm not saying that, but you were raised with very specific rules about right and wrong and appropriate and inappropriate. If you were in the Girl Scouts, if you went to public schools or parochial schools or private schools, then you're not right. I mean, rules, 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 boxes upon boxes upon boxes upon boxes. And how many people in your life said to you, what lights up your heart? What makes you giggle? What restores your sense of well being when you're really angry or sad? How many people have asked you that in your life? That's what we should be teaching in schools. And I say this as a school teacher because that's life. That's how we move through life.
I also want to add something because there's a danger when we're talking about the emotional field of black and white. And so I want to tell you about one of the people in our community, our collective. Uh, she used to just get enraged at, at everybody all the time. And she was doing a session with me, and I said, you came here to hold grief. She's also a nurse. She also sits with the dying. And I said, if you can get in touch with the fact that you take care of grief, you will discover the richness of yourself that you can't discover when you're just trying to be behaviorally correct. And she did. She began to own, which is a really good word. She began to own that she grieves constantly about this world, constantly. And she stopped biting people's heads off because she was in the presence of herself. And the most key element is she was present to the responsibility of being that self. I am fierce. I get a lot of people that say a lot of things about me, and they aren't necessarily nice through the years, but I can't not be what I am. I can't not be what I am. And it's important to remember that we're in a discovery process as human beings through this. And it's hard not to switch the conversation, even for Janice and I, to coping clues. But underneath it is the discovery of presence, is the discovery of self-awareness. Is that awareness I talked about in the why I stay present. Why I stay present is because I discover myself. Why I stay present is I discover what I need to have strength, stamina, capacity for. Why? Because I want it, because I want to stay present. So we have two threads going on in this conversation. One is really real and immediate. How do we deal with what we're in right now? How do we not lose our sense of self or our sense of well-being while we're busy trying to find our sense of self? And the other is an emergent phenomenon where this has happened through all time. What starts to emerge is a new sense of self. We can talk about everything going on here right now, but do you know it wasn't even a little over, I'm going to not do good history way, let's just say 2,000 years ago, where a lot of things were just the way they were. Nobody ever thought anything about it. And we're in an awesome moment because we are global. We are global. We have a young woman on Substack who talks to us every day about what's happening in Kiev. That was not possible during the Vietnam War. We had to drink the Kool-Aid because the only thing we had available to us was what the news was telling us. So it's what Janice and I are why she asked me to this and what we're rotor-rootering, I guess you would say, is the ability to keep being present even in this conversation, even after this conversation, even after other conversations, and see what starts to unfold in us. What do you start to reflect on? Not a new system of application, but what do you yourself start to reflect on? What do you begin to notice? What do you become aware of? Because awareness, after everything is said, awareness is the key to everything. Over to you, Janice.
And again, so Tantra and I both did a lot of work in the Newfield Network, which is an organization that trains people to be coaches, leadership coaches and life coaches and that sort of thing. And we spent a lot of time talking about, the level of programming that we all carry from the various cultures that we're a part of. And I discovered through that process that so much of my personal stress was tied to the disconnect between the programming with which I was raised and who I really am as a person. and that the more that I could let myself be who I was, um, whether other people felt that that was acceptable or desirable or appropriate or whatever. And I mean, it's not that I'm like, oh, let me find 5 new ways to be an asshole today. That wasn't the goal. It was just that, when I feel passionate about something, I speak to it because honestly, I can't live with myself if I don't. But that's because I know who I am and I know what I stand for. And I know and I can recognize where that aligns with the programming with which I was raised. And I can recognize where it deviates from and differs from the programming from which I was raised. And it's so to me, then awareness becomes, okay, this is me and this is my code, and this is the situation that I find myself in, and this is where there's alignment, and this is, this is where there's coherence, and this is where there's incoherence. And then is there where there is incoherence, is there something which I'm moved to do about that, to bring something back into coherence. But those questions can only be answered inside this field, this territory in Tantra, you can correct my language, of awareness, this being of awareness.
Self-awareness, it's a key to the kingdom. And the truth is we're being forced into it anyway, because this next year coming, when helplessness shows up, when there is no action to take and I'm going to get emotional, I think. We'll see how it goes. When helplessness shows up, it's so important to me. Oh, man, I'm going to get. When helplessness shows up, it's so important to me that people can tap their being, because we've given being a bad rap. We think being in action. But I think one of the reasons so many of us enjoy Substack is there's so many of us on Substack just being, just being present to what we're present to, opening up into what we're opening up into, and experiencing what we're experiencing and sharing it with others. So when we talk about self-awareness, we have to not be thrown by the helplessness and that we don't know what to do. But we do know how to be. And whether it shows up in our opinion, whether it shows up in our coping skills with ourselves and others, what shows up in how we have to redefine our emotional plane. I do something called the prophetics every year. And 4 years ago was the beginning of a tell about this year. And in that year, the overarching transmission to 117 people was basically build a healthy emotional palate. So that was that year. And then the next year, which is probably now 3 years ago now, the next year, the overarching transmission was this will all occur in the emotional field. The future will now occur in the emotional field. So that's another tell that it's a place to be at work about what for us is a healthy emotion. Also, I want to put a little note in. I have very sardonic humor. So I am one of those people that can find baked beans in garbage dumps and really get a kick out of it. But I want you to know it's not a solution to a problem. It's just I have very gallish humor from time to time. And, and that's because I'm present to myself and I'm aware of her ways of being. Have you ever thought to yourself, what would it be like if when we met each other on the street, we said things like, "Hi, I'm Tantra. I've got a dragon personality. I've got a gallish humor. And, I love to watch, binge on TV series at night," and the other person says, "Oh, my name is so and so. I love to sit quiet in the garden. I love to feel the rain upon my face and wait for the animals to find me." Imagine the kind of world we would be in if we could introduce ourselves to each other that way, and we could give each other space to be who we are. And frankly, what's going on right now is because we stopped giving each other space. We stopped appreciating the unique and essential aspect of every human being. And we tried to codify them into their function and their use and their worth. That is just about the sickest. That is our sickness. That is our sickness. Amen.
Amen. But, and we don't have to accept that reality. We might find ourselves sometimes at the effect of it in our temporal reality, but in our self, capital S, in our being, we can be a stand for the the unique and essential value of each person, of every living thing, of every non-living thing, of the rock and the river and the bird song, because that's who we are. That's who we are in our humanity and our one soul humanness. We remember that if we can give ourselves the space to remember.
And I just say, Leslie, I really appreciate you being on this call. I just want to make sure that you know the difference you're making on this call. I'm very moved by it. So I don't have an answer for you. I know that in 2021, I got post COVID and almost died for 3 years. But what was amazing about it, I lost all my business went down. I was having to cancel sessions because I didn't have enough bandwidth to even get on the calls. My whole world fell apart during that time. But but what I did, and this is the best I can do, is I went to my body. And this is could be a whole nother conversation for a few of us on CreateAWorld. Janice and I started CreateAWorld. I've since moved out of it, but the body of people in CreateAWorld, one of them deals a lot with the body. What I discovered was if I can't change my circumstances, I can tend to my body. And in that lies a great mystery. And I did homeopathy for years, and I had some of the leading homeopaths in the world, two of the leading homeopaths in the world. And one of the things that always amazed me about homeopathy, and that we're in a tangent now, but it came up, so here we are. Uh, One of the things that amazed me about it is homeopathy treats prior to two. The human personality forms and the body weaknesses form in the first 2 years of a child's birth. So I began to find using homeopathy that as my body recentered, as my body started to vibrate from its original design, it started to impact my circumstances. It's literally started to change my circumstances. So, Leslie, you're talking about something I would really like to get into at a really, really deep level, because there's a mystery that humanity, as long as humanity is going along fine and we have food and shelter and can go to the movies and our healthcare is paid for, a lot of these things we don't know because we're not in the face of them. We're not being challenged to actually discover there's an old adage about everybody looks for the keys under the light when the keys aren't under the light. That's the answer to that question. And it's a very profound question, and I promise you're not trapped. But there is the beginning of it, is who do you be in this reality where you can't find yourself? Because the self is never missing, regardless of what reality you're in. We got a good crowd.
And Lisa, I'm gonna speak to your question about things that bring delight that no longer bring delight and staring at the blank Christmas tree. And I'll tell you, I just so part of the work that I'm doing now is helping people navigate their emotional palette. And I just finished a group program called the Inner Monologue Method, where I help people basically get to know and then modulate the conversation with the voices in their head. And a big theme that came up during that group work was this idea of expectation. And so to me, when I think about you staring at your blank Christmas tree and, and you just, and there's a weariness, I wonder, and this is just this curiosity and for you to take what serves you. Is it Is it the expectation that that tree ends up looking a certain way? And the amount of effort that has to go into that tree being a certain way. Whereas if that tree were out in nature, it would be glorious in its nakedness, right? I mean, it would be that empty tree would be beautiful just as it is. And so I would invite you to just be with the empty tree. Maybe you put one star on it. Maybe it stays empty. Maybe it gets lights and nothing else. But allow yourself to consider that it's it's assessing that it needs to end up being a particular finished product that is creating the weariness, and where might there be the play for creating a different experience with the tree, even if it's just this year.
I also wanna add to that in the work, we do in the field of Tantra Maat, there are 2 kinds of memory. One kind of memory is an expectation from the past to be in the present, which is what Janice is speaking to, that we have a memory. So one of the things you can do is go into the memory. If you remember being in front of a Christmas tree that was, you know, was childlike and precious, and we have 15 minutes, by the way, Janice, because we got started late.
Mhm.
They, then go into the memory. It's called meditation, reflection. Let it feed you. Really let it feed you. Then the other thing is so many of us are I am 80 next year. I am becoming new. It just blows my mind. I didn't think you became new. 80. It's quite the shock, actually. But but we didn't have Christmas here because my housemate didn't do Christmas, and I was busy recovering. And then Jess, who's my housemate, I have the most whimsical tree you ever saw in your whole life, with irritating little Christmas trees that fall over all the time underneath it. So, part of it is the capacity for presence, is the trouble with memory is hi, Gwendolyn. The present problem with memory is we try to bring it forward to the present, and we never know how to be with something newly. Who am now, and with what we're doing, what's happening to us now, it's happening. We're being born newly almost every minute because circumstances are changing around us almost every second. And so the ability to not be in linear time, to not be in the expectation of the future being equal to the past, is these are very important pieces of the puzzle right now. And so there were 2 thoughts I was thinking about, like mantras. One is, "Who am I now, right here, right now?" It most helpful. And the second one is I'm gonna make a emotional recommendation. It'll totally wipe you out because we're so told not to do this. Absolutely adore yourself. Adore your anguish, adore your tears, adore your meanness, adore because that adoring is a door, and it feeds the part of yourself that wants to be here, and that's I'm gonna turn it over to Janice after this, because we need that, because it's getting harder and harder for a lot of people to want to be here, but we're here, so we might as well open the door. Over to you, Janice, for 10 minutes.
So I have a talk that I'm gonna be giving in May that I haven't written yet, but I'm pretty sure that the opening sentence is, "You are not broken. You are not damaged beyond repair. You are gloriously, fabulously human." And again, we have this emotional spectrum, right? We experience incredibly intense emotions of all kinds. And in more Western cultures, we've been trained that emotions are, in some cases, we've been trained that emotions are to be avoided, that they're bad, that if we have what we consider bad emotions or ones that I really encourage us to think of more as uncomfortable emotions, that there's something wrong with us, you know? I mean, I have a lot of times in my life struggled with, well, how come I'm feeling so bad when I should just be grateful that that I live in a free country, that that I can live where I want, that I can get a job, at least right now.
Well, honey, you don't have to worry about that one anymore. That's my gallish humor.
But, I mean, but because sometimes I feel bad, and sometimes I feel elated, and sometimes I'm really happy for somebody, and sometimes I'm really jealous of their success, and all of those things exist inside of the human experience, and I am coming to understand that I feel most aligned, most like myself, when I can treat my emotions as messengers. There's just something they want me to know. And if I
And
can just be still and listen, there's a lot to be discovered.
yeah, and give them the place. Give them the place. There's a thing about part of it is that it nourishes my daughter. I'm a mystic and a seer and a prophetess, and I've known about this period of time. I think we're at 47 years now. And one of the things that this year is about at a mystical level is every human being needs to find their direct relationship with creation. So it might be time to have your daughter find her own nourishment. It might be that we're at the point where we don't fish for the fish. We hand somebody else the pole. Self, the greatest word that this younger generation has invented is agency. I love that word. I think that word is absolutely extraordinary. And to restore agency in human beings. I was on a call a week ago in one of the most horrendous. I work with people in the UN, about 4 people, and I was in on one of the most horrendous conversations I think I've ever been in my whole life, and followed by one that had been like that at a personal level with someone else the day before. So it was a bit much to take. But in the middle of it, it was like something natural started to occur, something that I think is present in our collective field of humanity. I just asked her what she'd had for breakfast. And it wasn't a method, it wasn't anything. It was like we just had to get out of what was going on to the level of we could just restore ourselves, and in this case, how much she enjoyed breakfast and who had breakfast with her. No idea that was going to be that nourishing. Do you know? It wasn't a mechanism. It just showed up in the space. So if we can keep desiring to be well emotionally, if we can keep craving, which is the craving templates work on, if we can keep letting our cravings survive with no visible evidence that it is manifesting anything for a while, it will keep us sustainable. And we can find it in a good breakfast. We can find it wherever it is because we need it. We need this now. This isn't optional anymore. During this period of time where our society is collapsing and a new societal model is being born, we are its seeds. It's our seeds in everything we be and everything we do, and there's no right or wrong action. There's all discovery. That's the last thing I want to say. And then, Janice, I just want to say, because you got me into this, I would love to do this again and pre-program it for people to be able to ask questions.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. I mean,
over to you.
yeah, we've seen a lot of activity on this thread today, and that's exciting. You know, and so because you're all here, um, this is how we create worlds. We make space for conversation. We make space for imagining. I have a Create a World post that's rolling out today, and um, it invites you to imagine the world that you create. And sometimes there's pain. Sometimes we experience sadness in craving because what we're craving is does not appear to be in our current reality. But we can hold it as real in ourself, even when it's not showing up at the grocery store or the DMV or wherever we find ourselves. But it exists because it exists in us. And it's acknowledging that power that we have when we are willing to be in our being as we truly are. And we would love for you to share if there's other conversations that you would like to hear us have. You can go onto the Create a World Facebook page and put a note there. You can reply to any of the Substack posts and just let us know, hey, we would love to talk more about this. You can reply to we'll be posting this one on Substack. You can reply to this one. But we want to know what you want to talk about. Yeah.
And we're using my Substack today because it was the easiest one to figure out, frankly. And so that's why we were a little late getting on. We were in our own learning curve, and it's just really exciting. I just want to share something. I started working when I was 19. I'm 79, almost 80 now, and it's really beautiful to watch Create a World stay in existence. Because sometimes when you move out of something you created, it doesn't stay in existence anymore. And yet the people that were part of Create a World are fundamentally here to create a world. So I highly recommend Create a World. I think it's an extraordinary group of people. And I'm very grateful that I got to be one of the founders of it, and very grateful for what you all are doing. But that's why it's on my Substack post, not on Create a World Substack post. And then what'll happen is we'll take it and she'll restack it into the Create a World Substack post, and then you all can respond in the Create a World Substack. Anything else for you, Janice? This has been such fun.
It has been such fun. And it's a wonderful bridge from 2025 to 2026.
And I did find where it says end. You wouldn't believe. You wouldn't believe the learning curve we've been in doing this. So want to finish a minute and 30 seconds early?
Surely.
Then
Thank
we're
you,
not in.
everybody.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Take precious care. Good holiday.